right, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming in a little early. We're just gonna let people get situated and we'll start. Looks like we can start pretty much at 12. There's a lot of people here that are coming on time and that's what we like. If everyone can, I don't need really everyone to tell me, but if you can hear me and see the screen, see me, please put a number 1 in the chat so we can make sure we're good to go here. Awesome. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Nicole, Margaret, Chuck. All right, cool. Thank you, everyone. Awesome. All right, for those that just came in, we have 1 minute left, so got here early and on time, so you're good. All right, cool. So it's 12 p.m. and I think we're ready to go if everyone's ready here. So welcome to another NJ Thrives Thursdays. It's a weekly webinar series for New Jersey small business owners. Before I get into it, I'd like to get a sense of the audience we have today. So if you can, please share your business. What kind of business do you have inside of the chat? Not only does that help us tailor the presentation for you, but you never know where you're going to find your next business partner, your next client, so I'm a big proponent in networking. So if you guys could please share if you have doesn't matter if it's a hair salon, doesn't matter if it's an e-commerce store. Awesome. So I see handmade greeting cards. That's incredible. Laser engraving. Awesome. Marine sales and service company. That's super interesting. Taj Diamonds. Oh, I remember you, Naveed. You're in Jersey City. Awesome. Amal Herbal Body Butters. Cool. Village Concierge Services. Awesome. So yeah, keep them coming. Again, this will help us tailor the presentation for you. But that being said, I'm your host, Christian Pichardo, NJSBDC marketing consultant and CEO at lumomedia.com. What's the NJSBDC? We're basically a statewide program powered by the SBA and partners to help small businesses with no-cost small business consulting, training and events starting at $0, exclusive small business resources. So for today's agenda, we have 3 headlines. We'll get into the webinar right after that and then Q&A. So let's get right into it. These are a few small business headlines of the week. So this came out last week, but you still have time to be in the know about it. So New Jersey Community Stage Relief Grant Program application, it opens August 17th. So in 5 days. Here's the link to apply to it. This is for venues, businesses, sole proprietors that host, organize, promote, produce, or manage live events or performances. So there's grants of up to $300,000 through this program. So if you are a venue-based business, that does live events or performances, this is a great resource. So, by the way, all of these links will be dropped in the chat at some point today. Number 2 is the NJTT board has approved the Main Street Recovery Program rules. So this just, it's always good to follow up on this kind of news, because then you could be the first person to, apply to these things. And I don't know if anyone here remembers, but last year when COVID first hit, there was a bunch of programs coming out, and within hours they were closed because so many people would register or apply for whatever at that time the program was. So keeping up to date with the progress on these kinds of programs is a good way to get a leg up. So third one here, third and last, is the SBA announces a plan to open supplemental grants for shuttered menu operators, grant applicants. So basically, this is just saying, we got more money for you, or it's coming. So again, one of those things that it's good to keep up to date on. So that's great progress. And those are our headlines. So before we get into the webinar, there's 3 things to keep in mind. We'd like everyone to type their questions into the Q&A box. It's just a lot easier. Sometimes in the chat, your question might get lost. And in the Q&A section, then we could sort of focus on in there. If you see your Zoom window on the bottom, you're going to see a little toolbar. There's going to be a bunch of buttons there. So somewhere around there, you should see a Q&A. So you click that, and within there, you could ask questions, and you can even ask them anonymously. So that's that. Number 2 is complete a 3-minute survey that you're going to get once this webinar ends. So it's going to be automatically sent to you. You're going to get redirected to that page. Once you fill it out, you're going to get access to the presentation materials of our speaker today and a link to see this webinar on demand live at a later point. That usually gets released within 48 hours. And 3 is, by attending this event, you're automatically eligible for the Upgrade Your Business certificate that the NJSBDC gives out. So please, for more information on that, we'll drop the link in the chat, but there's the link there on your screen. So all that being said, I'd like to introduce everyone to Tim Peter for today's event on driving e-commerce traffic that converts, moderated by Jenny. So thank you guys. How's everyone doing?
We're doing great, Christian. How are you doing today?
Good. I'm excited. So we got a lot of people here, and I think we're happy to learn about e-commerce traffic today.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now.
Awesome.
So you can see my slides, I trust?
Yes.
All right, fantastic.
You're good to go. I'm out of here.
Well, very good. Well, welcome everybody. As Christian said, my name is Tim Peter. I am the president and founder of Tim Peter and Associates. I am a digital marketing strategist, digital consultant, do a lot of work in e-commerce, ran e-commerce digitally for ran e-commerce and digital globally rather for a couple of large hotel companies for a long time. I've consulted for years. I've worked at Charles Schwab during the dot-com boom in the digital space. So I've been doing this for almost as long as digital and e-commerce has existed, which is a terrifying thought. And like you, I am in fact a small business owner. So everything I'm talking about is things I do for my own business all day, every day. And I try to focus on for my business all day, every day, as well as for the folks that I work with. So, if you have questions along the way, please do put them in the Q&A box. Jenny will share them with me. Jenny Fine from Rutgers Business School Exec Ed, and we will make sure we get your questions answered. Now, I know this is pretty obvious to all of you. You're probably here for a reason that you know that we are living through a generational shift to digital. I love this stat, and I've been using this stat for the last couple of months. In a moment, I'm going to give you the updated version of this, but Shopify is a platform that businesses can use to sell directly to consumers. And this is a measure of the gross merchandise volume sold through Shopify over the last 4 years. So if we look at 2017 through 2020, what you'll see here is that in 2017, they sold about $25 billion worth of merchandise. In 2018, that grew to about $40 billion. Sorry, that's billion with a B, not million. In 2019, that grew to $60 billion. And you can see that their growth year on year went from about 70% to about 60% to about 50% year on year. And then 2020 happened and everything went nuts. And they sold over $120 billion worth of merchandise in 2020. And growth went to 100%, which I don't know about you, but 100 is a lot of percent. Like that is a really big number, particularly when you're building off a $60 billion base. And we're starting to come out of the pandemic a little bit. Obviously we're dealing with some issues with Delta and things on the whole, but this pandemic's starting to get better. And it might be safe to ask, well, is this going to continue? And if we look at the numbers that Shopify has had just for the first 6 months of 2021, yes, it's going to continue. They've sold almost $80 billion of gross merchandise sold in the first 6 months of 2020, which is more than had ever been sold through the platform in any year before last year. And they're on a pace to well eclipse the $120 billion that they did last year. They're well over halfway there. They're about 40% up year on year. And growth has slowed down, which, okay. So now they're only growing at about 67% per year. I don't know about you, but if my business was growing 67% per year, I wouldn't put the words only in front of that, and I wouldn't see that as any kind of problem. We should all be so lucky as to get 67% growth every single year. So this is a generational shift to digital, and it continues. Now, the question is, how do you get this kind of growth? And how do you get this kind of shift or take advantage of this shift to digital for your business? And the way we're going to focus on that today is we're going to talk about what I call the big drive. The big drive is we want to drive visitors to our web presence. We want to drive conversion actions from those visits, and we want to drive the frequency or volume of those actions so that we actually get even greater customer lifetime value and greater revenue to our business. There's a simple formula I use to think about this. V times CR times CLV equals money. And that is visitors times conversion rate times customer lifetime value equals revenue. Now, today, we're mostly going to focus on the conversion rate side. Okay, we are going to talk a little bit about the visitor side, and maybe a tiny little bit about the customer lifetime value side, but we're mostly going to focus on conversion. I want you to be aware that you want to try and drive all of these, and I'll show you why in a second. Let's assume that you get 1,000 visitors to your web presence in the course of a given period. For some of you, that's going to happen in a day. For some of you, that's going to happen in a week. For some of you, that's going to happen in a month. For some of you, that's going to happen in a year. Don't worry about how long it takes you to get to 1,000 visitors. That's not the important part of this discussion. Let's say that you convert 5% of those to sales. And let's say that the average lifetime value of customers, the amount they will spend with you over the course of the time they work with you, is $100. That means that those 1,000 visitors translate to $5,000 in top line revenue. Now, that's, again, don't worry about the actual numbers, just think about the model here. There are 3 ways you can grow. One is increase your visitors. If you go from 1,000 visitors to 2,000 visitors, your top line revenues will go from $10,000, from 5,000 to 10,000, even if you hold the other things constant. 5% conversion, $100 customer lifetime value. If you increase your conversion rate, so we go from 5% to 10% and hold everything else constant, you're going to go from $5,000 to $10,000 there. If you increase the customer lifetime value from $100 to $200 and hold everything else constant, you're going to go from $5,000 to $10,000 there. But if you can work to increase all of these, so we go from 1,000 to 2,000, we go from 5% to 10%, 100 to 200, we're going to generate $40,000 as opposed to $5,000. And for your business, add another zero, add another 2 zeros, add another 3 zeros. It's all fine. The point is, we want to work to increase all of these. Obviously, as I said today, we're mostly going to be talking about how you increase conversion rate. But I don't want you to walk out of here saying this is the only thing you should do. You should look at how do we do all of these as we go forward. Okay. Now, how do you do this? How do you think about your customers? Well, I'm going to show you a couple of frameworks, and then we're going to dive into some very specific examples. The first framework I want you to remember is the king, the queen, and the crown jewels. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean that content is, was, and always shall be the king. Content is what your customers use to answer their questions. Content is the 24/7 by 365 day out of the year salesperson and customer service person when we talk about digital. Content is how your customers find the information you need. If you do not have content, you don't show up in search. If you don't have content, your customers have nothing to share. You have nothing to share, and they won't find you. Now, I do hear people from time to time say content is expensive. And I'm here to tell you, content is not expensive. Content is dirt cheap. Content that doesn't convert is expensive. But if you had a salesperson, if you made a piece of content and the piece of content doesn't matter whether it's a web page, doesn't matter whether it's a video, doesn't matter whether it's an image. Let's say it cost you $1,000 to create that piece of content. Now, for some of you, you're probably looking at that and saying, $1,000, that's a lot of money. And sure, it is for some, right? But what's also true is that $1,000 piece of content can sell for you 24/7 by 365. If you had a salesperson who worked 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days out of the year, and continually converted people into sales, $1,000 would be dirt cheap for you to pay that salesperson. That's how I want you to think about your content. It's a salesperson, especially for purposes of this discussion today when we're talking about conversion. Don't look at your content as a cost. Look at it as a salesperson. Look at it in terms of, is it doing its job selling? And if not, then we have to talk about how to fix that. I'm going to show you some examples of that in just a little bit. But definitely think about it in terms of, is it doing its job as a salesperson for you? And that's what you need to do, because that's the thing your customer is going to interact with digitally. Now, if content is king, customer experience is queen. Now, first, I feel it is critically important for me to note that the king and the queen here are equals, right? It's not a hierarchy where the king is above the queen. It's not a hierarchy where the queen is above the king. They are both incredibly important. But customers need to have a good experience with your brand. I always tell people brands are not your logo. Brand is not your color scheme. Brand is not your font. Brand is not your messaging. Brand is the sum of all of the experiences a customer has with your business. And the customer experience that they have is what they are going to remember. And it's what they're going to tell their friends and family and fans and followers on social media and review sites and the like. I'm sure many of you have had a great customer experience from time to time. And I'm sure some of you who have had a great customer experience have told somebody who you knew about it, right? I went to this place, it was terrific. They took really good care of me. You probably told somebody, some of you, some of the time. I'm confident every single one of you has had a really bad customer experience somewhere along the way. And I'm pretty confident that every single one of you who had a really bad customer experience has told everybody you ever talked to about, oh my God, let me tell you about this time when I got treated so terribly at this place, right? That's what people do. So what you want is for your customers to participate in the creation and curation of a positive brand story on your behalf. And what story are they going to tell about you? That's driven by the customer experience. And that is what is called user-generated content. Whether you call it word of mouth if they're talking to people face-to-face, or user-generated content because they're doing it online, it's all content that comes from your customer. What content are they going to create on your behalf? Is it going to be good content or is it going to be bad content? Customer experience is queen because it causes the customer to tell the kind of story about our brand that we want them to tell. Now, if content is king and customer experience is queen, data is the crown jewels. Data tells us whether or not our content is doing our job and whether or not our customers are having the experience that we want them to, so that we can learn and improve and get better and create better content and create better customer experiences and convert more of the people who come to us. Now, obviously, there's a lot we're going to get into the details here, but I just want to make sure I explained that okay before I move forward. Are there any questions related to any of that before we move forward? Okay, I'm going to move forward then. Now, when we talk about content, when we talk about customer experience, when we talk about data, and when we talk about the kind of experience we want our customers to have and our web presence and the like, we have to think about where customers interact with us. And they don't just interact with us on a website, they interact with us in lots of places. So I want you to start to think about not just your website, but your web presence, your total web presence that you want to create for your customers. It starts with what I call the hub, your website and your email address, your email list rather, excuse me. Those are the single most critical assets your business owns. You must have a website. You must have an email list. Must. If you don't, I have a couple of slides that are in the handouts. I'm not going to spend time on it today because I really want to focus on how you drive conversion today. But there are a couple of slides at the end of the handouts that talk about how you can get a website and how you can get an email list going for your business. Okay. But be aware, those are your core. That's the hub of the hub and spoke model. And the reason that they're so important is because they're the assets you own. They're the assets you control. You always have a way to talk to your customers. You always have a way to reach your customers when you have a website and you have an email address, email list. My goodness, I keep saying that. I apologize. You need both of those because they allow you to connect directly with your customers without anyone else in the way.
Tim, this is Jenny. I'm going to break in for one moment.
Yeah.
We've had a few excellent questions come in through the question and answer.
Yeah,
I think that
please.
some of them probably can wait until a little bit later, but one
Sure.
I think might bear answering before we get too much farther. And that is a question from Paul, who asked, what is the difference between CX and UX? And maybe that's something we could address before we get too far, just so we're really clear as we move on. And those of you who submitted questions, thank you. I think some of those questions are appropriate more for the end, so we'll be sure to get to those as well. But this difference between CX and UX, Tim, I think might be important.
No problem. So you're going to get slightly different definitions from different people. I will tell you my definition. I tend to think of UX, and I think this is a fairly common definition. UX, user experience, is typically focused solely on the online experience and very frequently just on the experience on a web page or website. So what is the user experience as people interact with our website? What is the user experience as people interact with our app? Things along those lines. Customer experience is the broader set of experiences that they have when interacting with our brand or business. It is not just what happens on the website, but what happens on the phone, what happens in store. If you're, I noticed there were some people here who, project management. What was the experience that they had while they were actually, we were running a project for them? Somebody who's doing fine art and design. What was the experience when they ordered something from us? Somebody here who makes homemade vegan desserts. What was the experience they had? What did the box look like that it came in? Did that tell us a good story about the brand? And all of that builds into the overall customer experience. So that's the easiest way to think about it. Is user experience is focused solely online. Customer experience is focused across the whole thing. I tend to focus more on customer experience, because I think we should think about a brand experience that people have, what they think of us as a brand overall. And so we want to think of every interaction they have with us as part of that. And B, because I'm not the biggest fan of calling our customers users. The only people who I know who call their customers users consistently are software people and drug dealers. And I really would rather we think about it in a more positive way. So I always focus on the customer. But it's a good question. It's something that does come up. And as I say, I just tend to think of the overarching experience as being customer experience. Okay. Now, I mentioned the hub is your website and your email list. Your spokes are all the other places people can interact with you. Do you have a Google My Business page if you have a storefront or you serve a local area? Do you have a Facebook page or an Instagram page if you are a B2C company, meaning you sell to consumers? Do you have a LinkedIn page if you're a B2B company or you're hiring employees? Those are both really good reasons to have a LinkedIn page. Do you have a Twitter account so you can interact with journalists and the press? Do you have a YouTube channel so you can put up videos about your things? Do you sell through third parties like Amazon or Etsy or Zillow or whomever? Those are all valuable tools as well. And at some point in the future, there's going to be something else come down the pike, just like we saw TikTok emerge over the last year or so, as we've seen Clubhouse emerge over the last year or so. You want to think about all of these. They are all channels for distributing your content. They are all places that you can collect consumers and bring them to your website or your email list. They're often places where they can transact directly and make a purchase. And you want to make sure they're driving people to you, and you want to make sure you're driving content out to them. But remember, they're the spoke, and you want to bring people back to the hub of your website and or your email list. And the reason I say that is because there's an old quote that says, don't build your brand on rented land. You should have a Facebook page for your business if you're talking directly to consumers there. It's okay to do that. Also recognize that anytime they want, Facebook can change the rules of what you can say, how many people will see it, etc. And it can hurt your ability to drive your customers, to connect with your customers in the long term. So it's okay to use them. You should use them. You should also recognize that they can and do change the rules of the road all the time. And only your website and email list are the things where you have full control. So you can use rented land for what it's good for, but make sure you have some land you own as well. Okay. All right. So as we think about driving business, as we think about traffic that converts, there's a very simple model for thinking about this. And that is see, click, act. Did the customer see our message somewhere on one of those hubs, whether it's organic or whether it's something we paid for? Did they click through, which could mean they click through to our website. It could mean that they click and interact with the page itself on Facebook or on our website or on Instagram or on our website, etc. And then did they take an action we care about? Did they sign up for our email newsletter? Did they schedule an appointment? Did they buy from us? And anytime we're going to talk about traffic that converts, we have to start with act. You don't start with traffic. Getting traffic is easy. Getting traffic is super easy. And I realize you're probably going, nah, that can't be true. But it is true. You can buy it. I didn't say it was cheap. I said it was easy. Right? But there is always somebody you can pay, whether it's Facebook, whether it's Google, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it is Instagram, whether it is TikTok, whether it's, take your pick of the flavor of the month. You can always pay to get traffic. You have to make sure it clicks, but paying to get traffic that does not act, that does not work for your business, that does not convert is not a good idea. So first, you need to think about, did they act? Did they do a conversion we care about? Your digital presence can only grow your business if you ask for the sale. Now, I put sale in quotes here for a second, because when I say sale, I really mean conversions of different types. Did they buy something? Did they download a lead magnet? The lead magnet is something you might have on your website that says, give us an email address and we'll give you a $10 coupon off your next purchase. Give us your email address and we'll give you this ebook about our service, for the folks who are doing the project management thing, 10 steps to having a successful project. We put together an ebook. Give us your email address. We'll give you the ebook. That's a lead magnet. The coupon is a lead magnet. Did they sign up for your email address? Did they schedule an appointment or a reservation? Did they call your phone number and talk to somebody? All of those is a conversion, and all of those represent some economic value, whether potential or real, for your business. And you can only actually make your business better if you know whether or not these are working for you. So you always start there. Now, you can use a shopping cart, right? A shopping cart lets people buy products right on your site. So for instance, there is somebody who sells plus size clothing online with us today. You would want to have a shopping cart of show them the picture of the clothing, let them add it to a cart or let them buy it. Real simple. Make it happen from that perspective. You know, I noticed somebody who has herbal body butters. Great. Same thing. Tell them about the product, get them to add it to the cart, get them to buy. All good stuff. Now, some of you might not actually sell directly to the customer online. You may have them come into your store. You know, I noticed somebody here who's an MD. You can have an online appointment form that says, I just want to make an appointment. Let me go ahead and book an appointment when availability exists and just do it this way. You have a restaurant. Here's a table picker that says, I can go ahead and make order a table right now. Really straightforward, really simple stuff, right? Schedule an appointment. You can have lead forms that help you grow your email list. What is the email list? Are people on the list? And as I mentioned a moment ago, give them a lead magnet. What is a reason people have for giving you their email address? Now, in this specific case, they're giving, subscribe to our newsletter, we'll give you a $10 coupon. I mentioned a moment ago that, you know, these all have economic value. This one I always think is interesting because clearly these folks have figured out that an email address is worth at least $11 to them. Now, how do I know that? Because they're willing to give you a $10 coupon. If an email address was worth $9 to them and they were paying $10 by giving a $10 coupon, they'd be losing money. So they've done the math and figured out an email address is worth at least $10 to us, and thus we'll give people a $10 coupon to get it. Now you say, well, how can you know that an email address is worth $10? By the way, if there's somebody who's off mute, can I ask that you mute, please? Perfect, thanks. Sorry, I was getting some background noise. So how do you know this? Well, very simple. I don't know what this product, what this company sells their products for. I don't know what their average sale is. Okay, but it's a camera store, and they do not a camera store. It's a photographic services store. So they'll do things like digitized photos. They'll do things like, you know, they will sell you photographic products. They'll sell you ring lights, if you can see the reflection of my glasses, right? So you can take better pictures, or so you can look better on Zoom, or at least as good as I can look on Zoom. But it's all ways of how they make money. And they've undoubtedly looked at what is the average order value when people buy from them. And I'm going to say that the average order value, I don't know this, I don't know, but I'm going to say the average order value is $200. I don't know the actual amount, but we're going to say it's $200. And they're going to look at their conversion rate from email. And maybe their conversion rate is 6%, right? Well, 6% times $200 is $12. And thus, every email they get is worth $12 to them, as long as their conversion rate stays constant. So if they're making $12 every time they get an email address, eventually, right, $200 sale times 6% conversion rate equals $12, then they can absolutely pay $10 by giving a $10 coupon and drive, you know, have a profit of $2 on that specific email address on the first sale. And when we talk about driving traffic that converts, that's how you always want to think about it. I'm going to show you another example in a moment, but you want to think about, are we using this economically? Because it's not just driving traffic that converts, it's driving traffic that converts at a reasonable cost, at a profitable cost. As I said, you want to get traffic? It's easy. Go spend a bunch of money. You want to get traffic that converts at a reasonable cost? Start thinking about how much do I make from each bit of traffic I get, or each email address, or things like that. We're going to dive into how to do that in just a moment. Now, you have to recognize that to have things convert, notice we're giving customers a value here. And in exchange, they're giving us something we value, an email address, right? Because it's always an exchange of value. It is always a case of how much am I giving the customer in exchange for what they're giving me? Because your customers are always asking two questions. And I admit this is a grossly oversimplified version of it. but they are asking, am I going to be satisfied when I use your product or service? Is this going to meet my needs, and am I going to be happy about what happened here? And the second question they're going to ask is, why should I buy from you? And by the way, I really, really want to give a shout out to my brother-in-law for agreeing to pose for that photo. It's a huge help. But that's what they're trying to do. They're asking, am I going to be satisfied? And why should I buy from you? And so everything you do, remember I said content is king. Everything you do needs to answer those two questions. And there's a very simple way to talk about how you answer those questions so that you can actually drive conversions. And that is, give them a benefit. We call this the inverted pyramid model. Give them a benefit, and then give them a call to action. Tell them what's in it for them, the $10 coupon. Tell them another benefit to them. And I'm going to go back to this one for a second, right? Once you're opted in, sign up to get news, updates, and offers delivered to your inbox. Once opted in, you'll receive your $10 benefit. Notice benefit, call to action. Very simple, right? Need assistance, call to action. Here's the phone number. Good stuff, right? They're being really straightforward. Now here they only did one benefit, but they have a second one because they're kind of showing it visually. Okay, so think benefit, and then call to action. And then you can repeat that as many times as you need to on the page or on the mobile app or whatever it happens to be, or in your email. What's the benefit to the customer? Give them a second benefit. And again, these can be text, they can be visual, could be video, and then ask them to do something. And we call that thing we ask them to do a call to action. Okay. Any questions about that before I move on, or anything we've talked about to this point?
Tim, we did have one question come in a little bit earlier, which is a little particular, but if we're at a point, now's a good time. And that was just a question about how does Shopify differ from Wix?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. I'll do this in 100 words or less. It's a slightly complicated question. Wix is a website builder that allows you to build a website and connect to a shopping cart, meaning somebody can actually put things in a cart and buy. Shopify is a shopping cart that allows you to build a website around it. So if you're going to create a website that is not going to sell with a shopping cart, you're not selling products that you're going to ship to people, or they're going to pull up in front of your store and pick up, or come into your store and buy, but you're a consultant like me, you're an MD, you're what's another good one here? The project management service, right? We're not selling merchandise to a consumer. We don't need a shopping cart. So Wix would be a good tool for us to build a website in. If I'm selling merchandise, let's say I have a music store and I'm selling guitars, or I'm selling, keyboards or things along those lines, and I ship them to my customers, or they can come, or they can drive by the store and pick them up, then I would want a shopping cart product, and Shopify might be a better option for that. Okay. All right. So I just talked about benefit, call to action. So what do we mean by calls to action? Well, there's things we need to think about with a call to action. The first is it has to be big. Now, I know this is going to be funny, but there's this guy, Fitt, the late Dr. Fitt, he passed away a number of years ago. He had a PhD in human computer interaction, HCI, and his doctoral dissertation became known as Fitt's Law. And what Fitt's Law says, and Dr. Fitt proved this mathematically, and I don't mean to make fun of the guy, but I think it's the silliest PhD I've ever heard of from one perspective, was he proved mathematically that on a computer screen, buttons that are bigger are easier to click on than buttons that are small. I know this is shocking. I'm going to say it again because it's such a shocking idea. But buttons that are big are easier to click on than buttons that are small. Now, I'm not trying to make fun of Dr. Fitt. I'm really not. Well, I mean, I am a little, but I'm not trying to make fun of him too much, because how many times have you been on a web page or been on an email where every call to action is exactly the same size, right? You see, click here, click here, click here, click here, click here. Well, which one am I supposed to click on? Which one's the good one? Which one's important? We don't know. Whereas if I say, click here, same day, home delivery, and I've got this big image, and then I've got a smaller image, and then I've got smaller images still, like you see on the screen here. Clearly, this is the good one, right? This is the big one. It must be the good one. That's where Fitt's Law comes into play. Think about it from that perspective. Think about the placement. Is the call to action above the fold, as we call it, meaning can I see it on the screen without scrolling, or is it below the fold? Calls to action that are below the fold get fewer clicks than calls to action that are above the fold. So make sure you give them something clickable right on the first screen they see. Make sure you test your verbiage. Is it add to cart? Is it buy now? Is it learn more? Is it act now? You may find that different verbiage works better or worse for different types of products and services. I can't tell you there is a universal set of words that you should use. I guarantee you're going to get more clicks. That's something you have to test and see for your own business. Look at the style. Is it text, like view collection? Is it, a link? Is it a link in a broader set of text? Here's a whole bunch of things. I've got a link right here. Or is it a button like we see here? Those are all calls to action you can test. And lastly, think about the color. Obviously I can see this is a button. This is a nice bright red color. I will admit, one thing I don't love about these, and I don't mean to diss these guys, I think they do a good job overall. But one thing I don't love about this is a dark red on a dark background. It's not super high contrast, and about 7 to 9% of American men are colorblind, and about 2 to 3% of American women are colorblind. The contrast may be too low for colorblind people who have the specific type of colorblindness to actually be able to see the button. So look for higher contrast generally, so it stands out. The other thing you have to remember is that images sell. Pretty pictures sell products. You want to convert? Give people very clear pictures of it. If you note, here's example after example after example after example after example of images in all kinds of different customer experiences online. And I show this one. This is one of my favorites because this is a development company, human resources development company. And notice they're showing pictures of people interacting with the business. Even they understand we're selling a service, but people want to see it in action. So here's another best practice. Learn from the best. I would suspect you would all agree that Amazon is, okay at e-commerce, right? They probably do an okay job at that, right? And look at what they've done here. We have a SanDisk 128 gigabyte Extreme Pro SDXC UHS card, yada, 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 right? Notice they have a real big image. They have lots of images. They have very snackable information. I can see this information really quickly and easily about the different sizes. Excuse me. Do I just get the card or do I get it with a card reader bundle? Right? Very snackable stuff, very easily consumed. They give me ratings and reviews to tell me if this is a good one. Again, note it's visual, right? And they give me very quick benefits. Free delivery by this date, etc. Very, very quick. And if that isn't enough, they have a really, really big photo of a memory card. Imagine if this was a cool product, what they must do. They're doing this for a memory card. They're doing this for every product on the site. Why? Because pretty pictures sell products. Make it easy to consume, make it snackable, shareable, sharp, make it really simple for people to see. And that's obviously what they're doing here. Now, I talked a minute ago about, we've got to drive conversions. Obviously, you also have to drive traffic. So where does that traffic come from? Well, there are 3 big buckets of traffic we think about. We think about paid, we think about earned, we think about owned. Paid is what we think about when we talk about advertising. It's broadcast, it's outdoor, it's print, it's display ads, it's pay-per-click search. It's any time you pay money to somebody to get traffic back to you, that's paid media. PR and social, things like that are your earned media. That's press coverage. It's organic search. It's word of mouth when your customers tell their friends about it. It's reviews and ratings and social shares. That's all earned traffic. And owned media is your web presence. It's your website. It's email. It's your blog. It's pages on social sites. You own these. Now, why do I say all 3 of these? Because when you think about your traffic, your e-commerce traffic, you don't want to put all your eggs in any one basket. You really want to try to live here as much as possible, right? Use owned to tell the story you want to do and make sure your content's available. Use earned to broadcast to more people at a lower cost, and then use paid to supplement that and drive additional traffic from the stuff converts from what you learned on owned and the stuff that converts that you learned on earned. If you know converts, paying for it is a really good idea, right? And I'll show you how to do that intelligently in just a moment. But the mantra I want you to remember is that a good marketer can do for a quarter what any idiot can do for a buck, right? Any idiot can go out today who has a big bucket of money and just pay for traffic. You can do that. And I'm not saying you shouldn't do that. I'm saying if that's all you do, you're missing out on other great ways to reach your customers and lower your cost and do for a quarter what anybody can do for $1. So one of the best practices how to do that is influencer marketing and UGC, user-generated content. Who are the most persuasive voices in your audience? And how do you get them to sing your song? How do you get them to tell your story? Now, when we think of influencer marketing, we tend to think of people like, the Kardashians, right? You're probably not going to hire the Kardashians to talk about your business. I know that may come as a shock, but I'm serious. It's probably not going to happen. And here's the thing. It's actually okay, because it's not the size of the network that matters. It's who's in it that matters. So if I'm talking about somebody who has, I'm looking at some of the businesses that you have here, homemade vegan desserts. If you happen to know somebody who's a mommy blogger who is a vegan and talks about raising her children in a vegan lifestyle and things like that, or how you throw parties for vegans and things along those lines, they probably have a really good audience of people who are interested in the thing that you're interested in. And you can get them involved. And if you can get them to start talking about your brand, that's incredibly, incredibly valuable. And it's something you may not have to pay for. You might have to give them some free product, but that's okay, right? And it's a way to say, how can I use these people who talk to their friends and family and fans and followers to talk about me from time to time? Can be a really, really valuable way to do that, right? So you don't need the Kardashians. Just look for the folks who are the right people for you. And they're the right people for you because they talk to your customers. By the way, you know who talks to your customers? Your customers do. Your existing customers are your secret sales force. When they leave reviews, when they give a testimonial, it tells a powerful story about your business and your brand. And as we talked about a minute ago, you have a terrible experience, you're going to tell everybody they know forever. Well, they're going to tell people anyway. Why not have them tell something positive? That's why customer experience is queen. Now, here's a simple example. Your numbers may vary here, but let's say that you got one customer a day times 5 days out of the week times 52 weeks. That means you collect 260 new customers every year. The average person in the world has 200 Facebook friends. Okay, so 260 people, customers times 200 Facebook friends is 52,000 people that potentially your customers could reach on your behalf. All right, clearly not everybody is going to tell something, but let's say 1% of them does. That means you're going to reach 520 people. And if you have a 5% conversion rate, that's 26 new customers, which is a 10% increase out of your original 260 folks. And that's just by asking them to tell a good story on your behalf from somebody who was a satisfied customer. Doesn't cost you anything. That's how you drive traffic that converts, because they're talking to people who are just like them. And the people who are just like them are people who are just like your customers. That's what you want to do. Any questions about any of that before I move forward? Should I take that as a no, Jenny?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
One question that came in was how you might be followed on Twitter, but I figured we'll save that one for the end.
Real simple,
at
TC Peter.
And in terms of content related questions, I think that was about it for now. So we can continue, but I would like to encourage everyone on to please do use that Q&A box to send in questions. As you can see, we're happy to address your particular questions as they come up. So please do take advantage of that. And Tim, I think we can keep moving.
Fantastic. Appreciate it, Jenny. Okay, cool. So we are talking, we're talking about all this stuff. So we want to talk about traffic that converts. Let's talk about getting the traffic to your site. And when we talk about getting the traffic to your site, I want you to think about something called the scent trail. Now, I know this is a weird term, but hang with me for a second. You've probably all seen old movies, where people escape from prison and the guards come out with the dogs and they release the hounds to go find the people. Well, what's the hound doing? The hound is sniffing. They're trying to follow the scent trail, right? They're trying to understand, where did the person go? Your customer is kind of like the hound. And by the way, I don't always love this analogy because I don't ever think we should compare our customers to dogs, but it's the best I got at the moment. So what are you going to do? What's happening is your customer has something they want to do. They're laser focused on, how do I do that? And anything that continues to give them breadcrumbs, continues to give them a scent to follow, they're going to follow. And anything that breaks it, like when the prisoner runs through the river, is an opportunity for them to leave and go buy somewhere else. You don't want them to do that. You want to make this as easy as possible for them. Now, I'm going to show this using search, because search is the simplest form of this. But this is true whether it's search, it's paid search, organic search, paid social, organic social, display ads, print ads, whatever, all of this, you have to follow these same principles, but it's really easy to see in search. This is what I'm showing you right here on the screen is a competitor of a client of mine from a few years ago. So Google doesn't quite look like this any longer. I keep this because it's a perfect example of what to do and what not to do. So this was the competitor of a client of mine. They were bed and breakfast down in Charleston, South Carolina. Now the customer searched for Charleston bed and breakfast, and here's an ad right here for Charleston Place Hotel with a bed and breakfast offer, yada, yada, yada. Notice they asked for bed and breakfast. Look right there, scent trail, bed and breakfast, right there in the text. Cool. I click the ad and I go over to a page that says breakfast inclusive. Uh-oh, it's not perfect, because it doesn't say bed and breakfast. It says breakfast. By the way, this isn't great because I asked for bed and breakfast and you showed me an ad that said bed and breakfast, and I came over here and it says breakfast inclusive, not bed and breakfast. Okay, so that's not great, but it's okay. It's okay. It mostly continues the scent trail. It would be better still if you continued it perfectly. Now, let me show you what not to do. This is my client before I started working for them, with them, right? Charleston, South Carolina bed and breakfast, historic Charleston B&B, right, which is a synonym for bed and breakfast. Okay, fine. You click the ad, and you come to a webpage that says a romantic hideaway in America's most enchanting city. What just happened? We broke the scent trail, completely broke the scent trail. What I just looked at, what I just asked them for, went away. That's the problem. You don't want to break the scent trail. The bounce rate on this, meaning the percentage of people who clicked on this ad, got to the webpage and left immediately, was over 90%. Now, think about that. Your conversion rate is going to be low if 90% of the traffic that shows up leaves before they do anything, automatically. What's even worse about this one, and by the way, I'm not blaming the client here because they'd hired an agency. I am very much blaming the agency. The problem here was they were paying for this traffic. Every time somebody clicked on this ad, it was costing them $1. And that meant that $90 out of every 100 didn't work, guaranteed. Think about that for a second. Every time I tell this story is from, 6 years ago. And every time I tell this story, this still gets me upset because the agency that they were paying to do this was either, criminal or stupid. There's no way to be this bad at it and charge people money for it. You're not allowed. It's simply not allowed. You don't want to do this for your business. If they told you what they wanted and you gave them an ad that said, this is what you want, land them on a page that gives them what they want. Continue the scent trail. And it doesn't matter if you're doing this with display ads. It doesn't matter if you're doing it with search. It doesn't matter if you're doing it with social. If you're showing them a thing and they click on it, the click has to deliver on the other side. You have to continue that message throughout, or your bounce rates will go up and your conversion rates will go down. I guarantee it. Does that make sense to everybody? Cool. All right. So you can measure this using Google Analytics. You can measure your website, and it's very simple. Remember your AABCs. A is audience. Who are the people? We're going to spend very little time on this today, but be aware it exists. You can learn things about the people, like are they active? What is their lifetime value, etc. The second A is acquisition. How did they come to your website? What did they come from? Organic search? Did they come from direct traffic? Did they come from social? Did they come from referral? Did they come from other sources altogether? And you can actually see information about these folks. Did they bounce? Did they, this, by the way, as a client, this is all anonymized because I had to keep this anonymous. But notice we can even see their conversions. We know that this is converting better than anything, which isn't that good. The conversion rate's really low, but it's telling us something. Notice this referral, a much better conversion rate relative to the average. But it tells us where we need to focus. There's an old joke about when you find yourself in a hole, stop digging. These folks are getting a whole bunch of social traffic that isn't converting. They're getting a little tiny bit of traffic from paid media. That's why it's in other, that also isn't converting. First thing we need to do is either make this convert or stop paying for it, period. That's how you make your business better, right? The B is behavior. What did they do when you're on your site? So we can see the pages that people saw, etc. The next thing is conversions. We can track conversions and did they convert? This is a different client. Notice we have much better numbers here. We see how many goals were completed. We see what kinds of goals they did complete, and it tells us information. And we can look at this by organic search, paid search, social media, etc., and start putting more money into the ones that work really well and pull money or effort out of the ones that aren't working very well, or take the ones that aren't working very well and put more effort into making them work better. Find yourself in a hole, stop digging. How do we improve the things that are bad? And it'll pull us up across the board. Now, I notice I did talk about paying for it. We think about this a lot in terms of cost of conversion. I'm not going to go through all the numbers here, but you will have these in the slides. I want you to be aware of them. But just think about it very simple. If I'm paying $1 for click with a 1% conversion rate or $10 per click for a 10% conversion rate, which of these is better? Now you're like, oh, don't make new math in the middle of the day. Okay, fine. I'll show you the answer. The answer is they're exactly the same. Each of these, a $1 cost per click at a 1% conversion rate, means you're paying $100 for every conversion, right? Because 1% divided into $1 is 100%. A $10 cost per click at a 10% conversion rate is also a $100 cost per conversion. They're exactly the same. Think about which one works for your business and focus on improving the ones that are poor, or stop them and put more money on the ones that work. This was a real example from a real client, 85-cent cost per click, $1.15 cost per click for 2 different ads they were running. Conversion rates were 4.25% and 5%. The cost per conversion were $20 and $23. Scenario A was marginally better, right? Even though it was a lower cost per conversion, a lower conversion rate rather, the lower cost per click was enough lower that their cost per conversion was slightly lower. In their specific case, both were worth pursuing. And here's why. They made a gross profit per sale of $100. If every time they were spending $20, they were getting $100 back, when would you stop spending $20? I want you to think about that just for a second. Actually, I'm going to make it even simpler. Since 20 into 100 is 5, if every time you handed me $1, I gave you $5, when would you stop handing me dollar bills? The answer should be never. If every time you give me $1, I'm going to hand you a $5 bill back in exchange, you should always give me that dollar bill. So think about looking at cost per conversion and then saying, where can I afford to put my money that gives me the best return on my spend? If every time you give me $5, I give you $1 back, that's a bad deal. Stop doing that. Look for places where you're going to get $1 and a penny back for every dollar you spend, or $1.25 back, or $1.50 back. And that's how you use paid media to drive traffic that converts. You always can look at, you can always look at, sorry, Jenny, you got a question?
No, there were a few questions, but you finish up first. That's okay.
Perfect. So, so look at your traffic volumes and look at your conversion rate. If you get a lot of traffic below conversion, invest and test on conversion actions. If you get a high conversion rate, but a low traffic volume, invest and test in ways to drive more traffic to those pages. If you get high traffic and high conversion rate, those are your superstars. Invest in driving more traffic to them. And if you have low traffic and low conversion rate, that is a sick dog. You need to either find ways to make it healthy or have it move upstate to visit grandma. Okay. All right. There was a question, please. Oh, Jenny, you're on mute. Sorry.
Sorry. Okay, yes. So we actually had two questions. One came in pretty early on, and then this one was more recent, related to the idea of getting grants or loans for small businesses. One was asking in particular about getting grants to advertise in magazines for a small business. And then the other one was a little bit more general with the fairly new small business grants and loans and what opportunities might be available.
So I'm going to leave that one for Christian, and Christian can tell you where to follow up with the New Jersey Small Business Development Center, because I'm sure they have resources that will provide you that. Do be aware that, especially with new business, you're probably going to have to pay a little more at the beginning, and so a grant may be a good way to do it, and the New Jersey Small Business Development Center can undoubtedly show you how to do that or explain to you how to do that. Okay. Any other questions before I wrap us up here?
Yeah, we did have one other question, which was, what is the best way to start an email list? Can you address that?
Best way to start an email list. So there's two versions of this. First, you need to make sure you have an email platform. Again, in the slides that I'm not going to cover, but are in the handouts that you will get, are a couple of email platforms like MailChimp, like Sendinblue, I'm blanking on its name right now, like Drip, that can help you manage your email list. And then you want to grow that list by thinking about a lead magnet. What am I giving my customers, whether I'm doing it on Instagram, whether I'm doing it on Facebook, whether I'm doing it on LinkedIn, whether I'm doing it on my own website. And you should probably be doing it in all of those places, depending on the kind of business you are. But what is the lead magnet? What is the offer I give to the customer to get the email list back in return? What is the value to them for giving me something of an economic value? Okay.
Thank you. Chris, do you want to take it back over, maybe answer that question about the grants and then talk about the series overall?
Sure. All right. So, yeah, I heard the question regarding, anything regarding funding, grants, general business. We have a slide around the end where we're going to drop a link, but it's njsbdc.com/request-counseling, and that's where you can ask or request a consultant for funding or grants.
Perfect. All right, so to wrap up, remember the big drive. You're trying to drive visitors to your web presence. You're trying to drive conversion actions from those visits and drive frequency or volume. Remember that conversions are your secret weapon. Remember that content is, was, and always shall be king, that customer experience is queen, and that data is the crown jewels. Remember that a good marketer can do for a quarter what any idiot can do for a buck, and make sure you're actually getting traffic from a variety of sources to lower your cost. And remember that you want to manage your budget for your marketing so that you're thinking in terms of cost per conversion. Am I spending $1 to get $1.25? Am I spending $1 to get $2? Am I spending $1 to get $3? And if you're spending $3 to get $1, you might want to find other places to put that money. Think in terms of managing your budget from that perspective. So you're driving conversion that converts at a proper cost for your business. With that, I want to thank you all very much for your time and attention. I'm going to turn it back over to Christian to wrap us up.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. As always, wonderful presentation, Tim. So always learn a lot. Let me get back into here. But yeah, our next event, guys, is with Michelle Schaap, a blueprint for small business cybersecurity. So you heard the US government got hacked not too long ago. Forget the name that they gave it. Or what it was, the pipeline, something with the pipeline, right? So if the US government can get hacked, imagine what could happen to a small business. So super important topic. That's next week, same time, same place. And that's it. We are the NJSBDC. We've helped 13,000 small businesses in New Jersey. We help with no-cost small business consulting, training, and events, starting at $0, exclusive small business resources. You can get started at njsbdc.com/request-counseling. Find your New Jersey county and go ahead and get registered. So that's it for us. Thank you, Tim and Jenny. And we'll see everyone next week. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I know.